Wow, our first video podcast.
I know.
Video episode. Welcome, everybody, to the Byline Podcast,
Sorry.
a podcast starring two bisexuals, very different bisexuals who read very differently, very widely, and we bring it to the internet for discussion. I'm your fun Uncle Carlton.
And I'm Kennedy. I like how every week you continue to emphasize that we're different.
Yeah.
Because
feel
I
like
think
it's-
the last week it was like you said different twice, and I
Yeah.
think you just said different 3 times.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh, I think that is the thing that like makes us, I don't want to say special, but special is that we host this together. And I thought at first when we first started that we were so intertwined with our tastes, but now I'm like, oh, we're just very different, but we happen to like
Yeah.
a few of the same things.
Yeah.
Or we can at least appreciate what the other person likes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
But this is an exciting episode.
It is because we're doing something new today. We are beginning the first of many episodes that will be a close reading of Sally Rooney's Normal People.
Yeah. We've had this plan for like at least a month now.
Yeah. I haven't done anything like this maybe ever, honestly, because even in English classes and college and my master's program, there was like some close reading, but people tend to gravitate towards big ideas and extrapolating things to their own lives as opposed to examining word choice
Yeah.
and syntax and context. And I honestly kind of prefer the latter. I like staying quite literally close to the text.
Interesting.
Yeah. How do you feel about close reading in general? What's your experience with it?
I guess it's a love-hate relationship. Like even this time, I love this book, but anytime I went to pick it up, I'm like, oh, right now it's like for quote unquote work. Like I'm because I have to
Sure.
keep stopping, and I took a lot of notes. And
Sure. So that feels laborious to you.
Yes, but the fact that we're doing it a few chapters an episode,
Yeah.
way less daunting than if we were doing like the whole thing at once.
For sure.
So like in school, typically in my classes we would break it a book into two class periods.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So it'll just be like so much that you have to do all at once.
Right.
Whereas this felt at least more fun. So,
Yeah.
I
feel like it's become not trendy, but maybe a little bit trendy. I've seen a couple of people online who are in the realm of book talk, bookstagram, etc., try to do something similar where they're moving really slowly. There's one bookstagrammer, her handle is Glutenberg Press because she used to work in a bakery and then got her
Cool.
PhD in like Victorian lit, I think,
Cool.
abroad. But she is or was doing a close reading of Paradise Lost by Milton, and I wanted to do that and then just obviously didn't have time.
When I got here, and you can see what I'm wearing. When I got here, this bitch had the audacity to be like, "You look comfortable. you look comfortable today." And I was like, "Oh, all right." Me and my athletic shorts and a t-shirt with the toothpaste stain on it.
Do you know how pretty much every t-shirt I own has some kind of stain on it. I got a new stain on my couch today. That's from my oatmeal. I eat it every morning.
You're also
right there.
an oatmeal person?
Yeah.
Cool.
What do you eat for breakfast?
Every morning I eat a rice bowl. Rice and
Really?
an egg on top.
Savory.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and
very
then
healthy.
I have a smoothie with it. A lot of kale.
Whoa.
Lot
That's
of kale.
super healthy.
That's
That's really good.
focusing on weight loss. So what else is going on?
I have been reading a lot, actually.
I have too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What have you been reading?
So I'm glad you brought this up because I actually wanted to tell you about this and the internet. But one of my classmates in grad school, her book came out in like February or March, and I hadn't gotten around to reading it until now. It's called Good News. Her name is Alexa. And
Kudos.
shout out. But I've moved it up in my TBR because Yasmin, our friend Yasmin, was like, this book made me break down in sobbing,
Oh.
and she loved it. And I was like, all right, well, I finally hit the point in my romance novel where I'm bored of it now, and it's just like,
Oh no,
yeah,
really?
I'm gonna skim through it to finish it because I'm interested in
You
what happens. But
Yeah.
like,
You said it was well written though. It fell off.
it's it's well written for romance, so like it's not awful, but now it's like it's going to the predictable
Yeah.
misunderstanding. Every romance novel has to have a misunderstanding.
I feel like you need to write a romance novel survival guide or like rules to doing it well. Like at least at this point the podcast you've articulated probably 8 to 10 like
Yeah.
stipulations that you
Well, I
yeah.
tried to write a romance novel. It was my last novel that I
Mm,
queried to agents.
yeah.
But then I think the reason why agents weren't interested in it is
'Cause
because it's hard for me to just sit and write. It's going to sound very mean. It's hard for me to sit and write poorly. Like at first I started writing like, okay, let me just write how romance reader wants to read a book. And it started off, not the strongest prose. But then I was like, oh, but now I like the story. So then I made it more literary. And so then the end result was like a literary romance jumbled thing that I don't
mm,
think knew what the identity was.
mm.
Anyway, all that to say
That's
is
an interesting assessment.
my plan, once I get like a quote unquote serious novel published or whatever, is to create a pseudonym and then write romance novels under that
Mm.
pseudonym. Obviously, for people who've read normal people, heavy on romance, heavy on the self discovery, things that are very prominent in romance novels, but it's just written with a literary tone
Mhm.
and marketed as such.
Mhm. I think about this a lot with Rooney's writing in particular is the sexual tension in the
Mm,
novel and like that, attracting a certain kind of reader. But for me that's like the least not interesting or substantial part of the book, but it's so secondary to what she's ultimately trying to do or examine. Beautiful World, Where Are You? The Is it Simon
hmm.
and Elaine? What is the
Oh, I could not tell. I know
Okay.
Simon's one of their names,
Simon's one of
though.
the names. Who the woman who's in relationship with Simon. There's some like pretty charged
Yeah.
sexual chemistry between the two of them, and I think it also comes up palpably in Intermezzo. Like there's a lot of sex in Intermezzo. I think even more so than Beautiful
Oh,
World.
for
Yeah,
sure.
like yeah, it feels all it's very explicit. I think she gets to me the most explicit in Intermezzo in a way that she hasn't or doesn't. It's in like first 3 chapters. I'll be curious to see. I'm already jumping into too much. She does write somewhat explicitly about sex in the first 3 chapters of Normal People, but I'll be curious to see how much more or less explicit she'll get the further into it we go.
Yeah. What are you reading? I assume Ulysses is still on there.
Ulysses is still on there. I did my required reading for the week for that. I am reading a supplementary guide in tandem with it by actually James Joyce's friend, which is interesting. I'm also kind of reading the Odyssey to also supplement my reading of
That's the movie
Ulysses.
that's coming out.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm reading 2 supplementary materials to Ulysses, which has been both helpful but also a little overwhelming. I've sidelined The Safe Keep. I recently purchased George Eliot's translation of Spinoza's Ethics.
Cool.
And I'm also reading a literary criticism in the form of academic essays by a professor I'm interested in. So,
Cool. I need to send you. I'm biased because he's obviously my favorite author, but Brandon's literary criticisms because I'm interested in to
oh,
thinking what you would think of the things he has to say about
would love that.
Sally or just a bunch of obscure French artists and I can't wrap my head around, but his voice is just interesting to me.
How have you been otherwise?
I've been fine. I think last week was just tiring because my boyfriend's parents were in town. Very fun, but this is the first day this week that I've left my apartment because we were out doing things all day, pretty much every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And so yesterday and the day before, I did not leave my apartment.
Mm.
I've been needing to go to the grocery store for days, and I'm just like, I just can't be bothered.
Can't be bothered. Rest and recovery.
Yeah.
You all were out and about with his parents.
Yeah.
I've been canceling a lot of plans
That doesn't
recently.
surprise me.
Yeah.
You overschedule yourself.
I do overschedule myself, but I've been enjoying being home so much. I feel like I've been so eager to get out of the house maybe over the last couple of months, but now that I've like made a little space for myself, I have so much reading that I not only have to do it, but I really want to do it.
I feel that.
You have to have a really good reason to pull me away from that, and doing something for the sake of it, especially if I'm going into Manhattan. Okay, so we've taken stock of ourselves. To premise for the billionth time, I have not read this before.
I know.
You've read this one time in full,
Yeah, but
and then I've stopped and started,
many times.
Yeah, many
it's one
times.
of those books that, yeah, the beginning is, you're just in it.
You just
jumped into it.
You are.
I'm just, for the people who are unaware, I'm gonna just read the back of the novel to give, if for whatever reason you're unaware of who Sally Rooney is, what normal people is. Sally Rooney is, I mean, we to bring her up every episode. She's probably, she's for sure top 10 most famous authors. Am I crazy with saying that? Yeah,
no.
like contemporary.
Yeah, that's
1000%. She puts out a book. Her latest book, Intermezzo, is like easily 500 pages. She puts it out. There needs to be no marketing. It comes out and there are lines around the block.
Yeah.
Like, no one's doing it like that now, except for like maybe J.K. Rowling. Like, where there are lines around the block when the book comes out. Crazy. Sorry to invoke her name, but just as a comparison. She's an Irish author.
Young.
Very young. One of the few authors who Kennedy and I have in common, if not the only, because I feel like we've introduced each other to a bunch of authors, but this is the one that we've both come in like,
yeah,
we have read multiple of their books, and we align on how much we love it.
Yeah.
The backsplash goes, Condell and Marianne grew up in the same small town, but the similarities end there. At school, Connell is popular and well-liked, while Marianne is a loner. But when the two strike up a conversation, awkward but electrifying, something life-changing begins. Normal People is a story of mutual fascination, friendship, and love. It takes us from the first conversation to the years beyond, in the company of two people who try to stay apart, but find that they can't. And it also lists how the sheer amount of awards. I was telling you the other day that it's crazy that, I guess because it has so many awards, it's crazy to me that the Women's Prize sticker isn't on here, because that's a pretty major prize. But again, going back to, her books need no marketing, so I think that's probably why. Because I would rather that than the fucking Hulu original series sticker.
So again, this is going to be a close reading. We're going to cover only the first 3 chapters today. Before I started reading this, I wanted to note, I think, 2 things that are distinct to Sally Rooney for me. The first is the setting within which she writes.
Right.
That being informed by her Irishness, but then also writing, this novel is set in 2011, at least the first 3 chapters were in 2011. And I had taken some notes because I wanted to think about what was happening in 2011 in Ireland, kind of like politically and culturally.
Yeah.
And if you'll indulge me. So one, the Queen of England, for the first time since Ireland's independence was won in the early 20th century, the Queen of England visited for the first time in 2011, which is kind of bonkers.
Yeah.
There was a changing political milieu, a governing milieu, because like what was happening in the fallout of the 2008 crash, economic crash. There was a recession going on, property values were crashing. And I
Uh,
think that's this like recession
yeah.
era informs a lot of how or what Connell and Marianne are coping with as young adults.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll talk about it specifically, I think, in the way that Connell approaches what he decides to study in school, which is
Right.
English as opposed to law. So that's like one thing that I wanted to know. And then the other is actually stylistic, which is that Sally Rooney does not use quotation marks.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I think that's like groundbreaking by any means. There are a lot of authors who write dialogue in like very particular ways. But I think for me, it either turns people off to her
Oh,
immediately
yeah.
or turns people on
Yeah.
because they're interested in its stylistic uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pause there. I'm actually curious to hear more for you as a writer, how you think about that choice. And is like, does that matter to you? And when you first approached this text and then her others, how did you feel about it?
It for sure matters because I think it is a ultimately gimmicky choice.
That's how you describe it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think so. I think it does feel crazy of me to say that because of the reputation she has now, but me going into her novel knowing nothing about her years ago, I was like, what is this pretentious ass bullshit? And even now, whenever I see authors who do anything other than just quotation marks, I'm like, what is this pretentious ass bullshit? And have you earned it? I will say I don't know if that necessarily puts me off anymore because I mean, if you do it well and it
Mm-hmm.
feels like it's earned, then sure.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Washington, I feel like is another author who doesn't use quotation marks, but it feels earned in the quickness, both in this and in his writing, the quickness of the dialogue, the very specific dialects of the dialogue. I think it lends itself to blending with the actual narrative voice
Totally.
very well.
That's what I was going to say too. And you answered my question, which is what makes it feel earned.
Right.
But to your last point, I completely agree. I think for writers who are interested in characters' interior worlds, I think kind of visually breaking down the structural barrier between what's externalized and what's internalized is like in keeping with what they're ultimately trying
Yeah.
to examine or do. And I had written down that this is also very pretentious of me to say, but that it democratizes the text.
Hmm.
Oh, no, you go.
Now, of course, you and I know what democratize
Well, no,
means, but for the people that don't know, no one in this room. But what does democratize mean?
I would say in the context of the novel, it is the inverse of democratizing, I think, in this sense, would be like creating some kind of hierarchy. And not that,
Gotcha.
or like segmenting something such that one thing is informing the other in a like vertical way.
Right.
And by democratizing, I'm thinking about texturally, like, again, this is probably making absolute no sense, but there's like a horizontalness.
I get you. Yeah.
Is the way that I'm picturing it in my head. So maybe not politically speaking, but almost like aesthetically
Yes,
speaking.
I see what you're saying. I feel like you agree with this.
Mm-hmm.
This might be a controversial take.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who I don't think earns it, but is very popular.
Yeah, go.
And I do love her novels, Lily King. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think it's earned.
That's a good example of like,
Yeah.
what pretentious bullshit is this? Now, luckily, I do love those novels, but I don't know if she earns it.
I completely agree.
Yeah. This discussion, I think, at least for me, is a good example of her strange popularity, for lack of better words,
Mm-hmm.
because she is a very capital L literary author. But like I said before, she has the ability to, her book comes out, no marketing necessary. There will be lines out the door in bookstores. And I think it's because she's been able to straddle a line for three types of people. There's the and none of these people are like
Hierarchically, yeah.
hierarchically like better than the other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's the people who solely just care about the romance plot,
Mm-hmm.
and she just writes good romance plots. She writes very compelling. There's no world ending like very big overarching thing happening like literally, but emotionally she's able to capture those feelings of wanting to be seen, wanting to feel a deep romantic connection with
Yeah,
someone.
attraction.
Right.
Yeah.
There's that group of people. There's people like me who loves both the romance plot, but also something deeper underneath that kind of gives a glimpse at society at the time, at these people as humans, not just as vessels to bash together and have sex, like in like non-literary romance novels. And if people like Kennedy, who's less interested in the romance and more interested in what is what do these people in this time period say about society in this place, say
Mm-hmm.
about the author, say about the world at large.
Mm-hmm.
And Sally has been able to just straddle all of those probably through many many drafts,
Mm-hmm.
but been able to straddle that so expertly that she's now amassed a wide readership of non-literary, literary, and people who pick up like one book a year. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
pick up a Sally Rooney novel.
That was so well said.
Before we even get into the text, so like I said before, I am of the schooling of Marie Helene Bertino. Took her class called On the Novel,
Mm.
where she examines every bit of the novel, even starting from the cover. Do you know
Mm.
what the UK cover looks like? It's the two people in a tuna can.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna pull it up right quick.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted your thoughts because I'm a big cover girl.
I know you
I
are.
am a big cover girl. So here is the UK cover.
Oh, I do know this.
Yes.
It is so much.
Yeah.
I hate this cover.
Interesting.
I think not the tuna one. I really love, and I love that you can see them in
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah. Before I read this book, um, you know, I saw this cover everywhere, and though it never enticed me to pick it up, I did find this cover very
Oh,
striking.
you did?
I don't it's something about the slash of color between them, I think.
See, I like this too. It's way too busy for me.
Ah,
There's
okay.
way too many lines. The layering of like ink drawing on top of title, on top of quotations, on
Hmm.
top of whatever, like it's a lot for me. It's a little too busy.
To me, this is an iconic cover. I will say iconic because of
It's
what it is.
recognizability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like because of
Yeah,
the
sure.
reputation. Okay.
Sure, sure, sure.
Okay. Interesting.
Um I do prefer the tuna fish one.
Okay. And one last thing.
Yeah.
Can you read the epigraph and tell me what you think of it?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. So I'm so glad you mentioned that because I love George
I
Eliot.
figured you would love it.
I was so tickled pink to see that she had included a quotation from Daniel Deronda, which I haven't read. I actually know someone who's reading it right now. But I just read Middlemarch last year. It's become one of my favorite novels, as is a common sentiment for those who read her. And yeah, I know I can read the epigraph. The epigraph is as follows. It is one of the secrets in that change of mental poise, which has been fitly named conversion, that to many among us neither heaven nor earth has any revelation till some personality touches theirs with a peculiar influence, subduing them into receptiveness.
Do you feel the theme of this in just these first three chapters?
Yes.
Okay, I was
Do
curious.
you?
Well, because I have the knowledge of the entire book, so yes, for me, for
Mm,
sure, especially with what happens later.
yeah.
But I was curious if you already felt it in these first three chapters. And I would also agree. Yeah, it's the again very much paying attention to the lines this time. It is hidden heavy. The
Yeah.
this notion of someone can essentially save you from heaven or hell.
Yeah. You can sense, I think, over the course of these first three chapters, a kind of devoutness that each of them is willing
Hmm.
to, or like sacrosanctness of their relationship and who the other person is to them, even as particularly in the way that Marianne sees Connell as like a person who can do no wrong,
Yeah.
or who does wrong but is excused at every twist and turn because of her like total empathizing of him as a person. So first chapter, January 2011. Like I said, I set the stage a little bit from a like socio-historical cultural perspective. But Marianne and Connell are classmates. Connell is the son of the woman who cleans Marianne's house. And we meet them in Marianne's house when Connell is picking his mother up from work.
So a few things just right off the bat of the first page. She could have started this chapter. I mean, she could have started this book at any time during the year. Like, it starts in January, the beginning of the year, the beginning of the novel. It's. I feel like from the very first word, you're already thrust into this is the beginning of something big. Like, I think putting the month January and then a year, it signifies you're going to be jumping months and years through the novel.
That's actually really good expectation setting. And again, I think a good point structurally speaking about how the rest of the novel will follow.
And I think the first line, I'll just read it right quick. It goes, Marianne answers the door when Connell rings the bell. Just that first line gives you so much about who she is, who these people are, the themes that are going to occur throughout the novel, that are going to repeat throughout the novel.
Really good point.
So I wrote a few things. First of all, the first line really plants in the reader like the normalness of the narrative. From a novel called Normal People, it just starts with the door opening, and then that's their quote unquote meeting point of the novel. It also sneakily gives a hint at Marianne's character, how Mary Ann answers when Connell rings. Shows the obsession, which is, we already see in the first 3 chapters, coming to his beck and call.
Oh, great. I think that's a really fabulous
and one last
cracking
thing
of the egg. Yeah.
With the context of the end of the chapter, which we'll get to, this sentence could be read from either perspective.
Yes.
Is Mary Ann hyper aware of what she's wearing? Later, that goes on to say what she's wearing. She's wearing a very simple dress, and she's taken off her blazer. Is Mary Ann hyper aware of what she's wearing, or is Connell noticing her more and more? Starts off with Connell not noticing things about her. At the end of this section that we're in, the 3 chapters, he's so hyper aware of everything about her body, the way she sweats and what she says when they're together and blah, blah, blah.
That was amazing. And I just see, going back to the beginning of this episode, we are so different because I made no notes on this page.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
And that's to say that like I think in themes. I think in motifs, and not that you don't, but you are called attention to like writerly intention in a way that I kind of just expect. Like I don't look past it, but I acknowledge it and then move on. To hop on your last point about kind of perception between these 2 characters. So it's written in third person.
Right.
As the chapters go back and forth, and even within the scope of a chapter, you may glean more from one person over the other, depending on the situation and what Rooney is deciding to do in any moment. But one of the strongest, and for me, beaten a little over the head, is the motif of sight and vision.
Okay.
There's a lot of language about looking,
right,
the gaze. But yeah, just the power of the look.
Yeah.
And the weight of that, the validation that you get from someone looking at you in the eyes. And there's a lot of Connell refusing to look at Marianne in the face. And what I had written is that Connell chooses not to see, and Marianne is choosing to see too clearly or closely. Like they're operating at two extremes of this sense. In the very last sentence of this chapter, he stares out the windshield and pretends not to see.
I also noted this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sight and desire go hand in hand in many ways. And this chapter, I think we get Rooney paints the picture of Connell being someone who can't diagnose his own desires.
Oh, yeah.
And thus is reluctant to see, both like internally and then out at the world around him. Marianne representing, for me, that unacknowledged desire, and the kind of like social stigmatization of what he truly wants.
For sure. Like the first chapter, like Kennedy said, is them meeting. You're immediately thrown into because Connell is picking up his mother from her job as Marianne's cleaner. You're immediately thrown into their dynamic. They're classmates, but they're very estranged. There's obviously an immediate power dynamic. And I think what you just said is exactly what some notes that I took down.
Yes.
Connell, obviously, to me, I felt like he wants to, quote unquote, look. He wants to see, he wants to look forward, he wants to look right at it, but he doesn't know, I guess he doesn't know how, if that makes sense.
So for me, I actually would flip those around for me. I think he does know how.
Yeah.
Like, because he exercises that in this first exchange with Marianne in the kitchen, he finds himself like unable to he can't draw himself away from her in the way that his mind is telling him to. His mind is telling him, this is the least popular girl in school. Yeah. This is the girl that everybody calls ugly. This is the girl with like the scarlet letter on her chest. That's like the how is engaging with her. It's the why, I think, that he doesn't understand why,
I see what you're saying.
And like he can't.
I mean, both can be true. That's the
thing
of literature. But yes, I think what you're saying is, to me, way more interesting.
It's so funny because, and this is the beauty of a book club, right? Is like, I sat here and had this experience reading. I took my notes, but then you're saying this stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, like that's another way to think about it.
That's a thing.
The only other thing I'll add is this, and I think this is the symptom of a second novel or, younger author breaking out, is hitting things over the head a little too early and repeatedly. That all said, it can be really rewarding when, something harkens back to the title or what the like overarching themes to be about. And we get that immediately in this first chapter from pages 6 to 7, wherein Connell says being alone with her, Marianne, is like opening a door away from normal life and then closing it behind him. He's not frightened of her. Actually, she's a pretty relaxed person, but he fears being around her because of the confusing way he finds himself behaving, the things he says that he would never ordinarily say. Yes. Thoughts?
Oh my God.
First of all, beautiful writing.
I don't even know if I have more thoughts than... Yeah. I'm very struck by what you just said about beating the reader over the head. I think this might just be I guess everything with novels is a taste thing. It's just a taste thing. Because to get to this point, I'm willing to bet that she had to go through like 5 or 6 drafts to get to this.
Oh, sure.
Because
of course,
I think with literary novels, when it's like essentially a long persuasive essay, it's good in the first chapter to do that.
There's a thesis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, there's a thesis,
And
and
this
that
is
is the
that.
essentially the thesis, and it's like beating you over. You know how when you're taught to write an essay, and it's like always make your final sentence of the first paragraph. This is what I am arguing, and I think that's essentially what she's doing. Is like this is my argument throughout this novel, and
Agreed.
and
Agreed.
and that's why I'm like, I don't think you're wrong at all. I just think it's a taste thing, and it's kind of like,
And I don't I kind of resent that I say it in those terms. I think for and maybe I shouldn't because beating over the head sounds aggressive. I think I just again having read her more recent works, I
yeah,
see the
I
ways
see what you're
she's
saying. Yeah,
enfolded themes a little bit and maybe that part of that is, intermezzo as a title. I don't think intermezzo comes up like
right.
you have to
Yeah,
understand what an intermezzo is
yeah,
and how that applies to the dynamics within that novel, whereas something so explicit as normality or something being ordinary and then the word ordinary and normal coming up as
hmm,
often as it does in this text, that's what I just there's like the redundancy, especially even by the end
I
of the
see what
third
you're saying.
chapter.
I see what you're
I
saying.
don't think it does anything bad in what I just
Yeah,
said. I think actually if she had kind of left that language there. But again, there's like these like internal examinations of character and motivation that require one to use language like normal or abnormal to distinguish or compare the character to another,
yeah,
right? Like that's the whole point of the novel is like why is this person drawing out or making clear kinds of social hierarchies or why is this person like throwing the status quo into question, right? Like that's what they're doing for each other. So,
a few things. First, we both read Intermezzo. Let's not pretend like Sally chose this title. You know this
no.
bitch chose. You know it's because Intermezzo is her fourth novel, and they're like, "Girl, do whatever you want. We don't know what the fuck this word means. No one will know what it means, but your name is on the cover, so it's gonna sell." She didn't choose fucking normal people for
You
this
don't think
title.
so?
No, and I think it was probably a synonym, like a very thesaurus synonym for maybe like the word normal or
Mm,
complacent or something like that. I
mm.
think this title was chosen to sell copies.
Interesting. Okay.
And I say that to say, I love what you said because I think you either by accident or on purpose hit on this was her outbreak novel. She wrote
Mm-hmm.
one before this that was, I think, well received, but definitely didn't put her on a map. This is the book that put her on the map. And I think it is because of the title, for one, Normal People, but also how this first chapter lives up to both the title and the themes. The fact that it starts with high schoolers, like people
Yeah.
who, no matter what they say, desperately want to be normal, desperately want to fit in and fit the status quo. But then you're immediately bulking the expectations of the title by presenting this footballer, this Irish footballer who is, the stereotypical jock popular kid who wants more than that, who wants to escape this life and both, well, maybe not literally, but metaphorically can't see clearly
Mm-hmm.
and pretends not to see things and is questioning, why is this woman who's the unpopular quote unquote ugly girl doing these things to me.
Mm.
It's such a simple setup from you picking up the book
Mm-hmm.
of two people who are just so different and separated, and the thing they have in common is they just want to be normal people.
Mm. Does Marianne though?
I think so, and we'll get into this as this goes along. But I mean, I guess we can go to chapter 2 now, and then subsequently go on. But
Yeah.
I literally wrote this in my notes that I think that is literally Marianne's character, especially in this high school section. Is despite what she tells herself, she wants that popularity. Like
Really?
because there are moments in this where one sentence she's like, Marianne feels above this and she doesn't understand why people would want the hierarchy and the boringness. But then in the very next sentence, she's like, she doesn't understand why she feels this thrill of these men checking her out and feeling beautiful in herself. And to me, that read as, yes, she makes fun of this, but she also wants to fit in with these people.
Mm.
But I understand reading it differently. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to discredit you. I'm just saying
No,
that's
no, no,
very
no, no,
much how
no.
I got out
I
of
take
it.
your point, and we might have to earmark that for
Yeah.
the next three
Yeah.
chapters. As far as the next chapter itself goes, so we're 3 weeks later, February 2011. In this chapter, we meet Marianne's brother, Alan, who I think will come to play a pretty significant role. Just in short, they quite clearly do not get along. And by not get along, I mean it seems that Alan is a bully,
Right.
abusive, verbally and physically. So that's a fraught relationship. And then in this episode too, Marianne and Connell continue to grow closer,
Yeah.
I should say, in very simple but significant ways. They broach physical intimacy for the first time. And this is where, again, motifs of looking and the gaze really popped up for me. The other thing is, in the sentences that follow, Marianne kind of remarks on her physical attraction to Connell in a very explicit way for the first time. And again, I'll draw attention to the language here around sight. She describes how much she wants to see him having sex with someone.
Yes.
It would be beautiful just to watch him. And again, that describes the ways in which she is always already looking at him. She would sign up for the Connell show any day of the week. And I just found that especially important here.
I also highlighted that, and I'll just note that I wrote, it's strange. This sentence is strange, or this description is strange, but tells so much about her character, obviously, as novels do, and how often she, like, her real self exists only in her fantasies.
Can you say more about that?
So the part about the character is obviously lack of well, to me, lack of self-esteem. Like, she can't even,
True.
she can't even let herself imagine having sex with him. It's more so, she would rather be apart from it and see him, having sex with someone else. At this point in the novel, this is how she sees her real self, is not worthy of, having sex with him.
Yeah. No, this is a good point. And I feel like I kind of skated past this when I was reading it. But in making Connell out to be some kind of Jesus-like figure, she is thereby and implicitly underselling herself as this person who comes up short. And she asks to when they have sex for the first or second time, and she's asking him if he's liking it. Like, he's the one who's allowed to decide if something is worth doing, if it's right. There's a lot of deference for a character who, like you said, is supposed to be so independent and apart from the pack. I see what you're saying now. That does track with me. I'm so sorry. I'm going to draw attention to sight again. And this on the same page, page 12, she talks about, and this we're thinking here about Marianne's commenting on normality as it pertains to behavior at school. She says Marianne's classmates all seem to like school so much and find it normal to dress in the same uniform every day, to comply at all times with arbitrary rules, to be scrutinized and monitored for misbehavior. This is normal to them. They have no sense of the school as an oppressive environment. And then at some point she says, she describes this time she got in trouble because she wasn't looking at the teacher. She says she wasn't even allowed to move her eyes where she wanted. Even her eye movements fell under the jurisdiction of school rules. And there again, I think that just makes explicit how much Marianne sees, like, sight for her is autonomy. Like, being able to look at and where she wants and when she wants to, that's her exercising her agency.
Yeah.
Even as she kind of like sublimates authority that she rejects in institutions like school, like the family, etc., she does sublimate that all to him. And at the same time, like, that's also where she feels the most powerful in
Mm-hmm.
some ways. Especially when Connell, looks back, so to speak.
There's a line at some point in the novel where, in the early parts of the novel, where they're having sex and she wants more than anything to both make him
Mm-hmm.
desire her
Mm-hmm.
and for him to say it out loud.
Yeah.
And I think that very much supports exactly what you just
Yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah.
The powerfulness
Yeah.
of allowing him to penetrate her, but
Yeah.
then also in having him say out loud how good it feels. I just wanted to point out very briefly the basics of my therapy when I first read this book.
Yeah.
Marianne had the sense that her real life was happening somewhere very far away,
Oh, yeah.
happening without her. And she didn't know if she would ever find out where it was and become a part of it. She had the feeling in school often, but it wasn't accompanied by any specific images or what the real life might look or feel like. All she knew was that when it started, she wouldn't need to imagine it anymore. I don't know if I have anything deeper to say other than I just love that line.
Mm-hmm.
I love those lines. I feel like it is once again another basis of the novel of her. I wrote that it's such a great way of displaying her want
Mm-hmm.
for the novel,
Mm-hmm.
and building tension without like disproportionate stakes like I talked about in the beginning. Like there's
Mm.
not like they have to save the world. Like the stakes is
Mm.
that she just wants a different life, or she wants to feel like she belongs, and she feels like the only way she can do that is to go away, and there's another life waiting for her
Yeah.
outside herself. and
I can see why that might resonate for you.
and just like because of the podcast, I'm telling you, I'll just that was the basis of my therapy for like months when I read this book, because I had no way of like putting that into words until I read that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, my mind was blown of
Yeah.
like, you just, yeah, yeah, you're just born in this small town. You feel like everyone hates you. In some ways, you have proof that everyone hates you. And you feel like your real life is starting without you somewhere else. It's
Yeah.
just such a beautiful, elegant thing to put into a novel, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
All right. Chapter 3.
Last thing in chapter 2 is literally the very last
Yeah,
line.
babe.
It says, so Marianne's going over to Connell's house to like
Mm.
hook up basically, and the last sentence of the chapter is, before he lets her in, he looks over her shoulder to make sure that no one has seen her arrive. Just just emphasizing the theme of seeing people
I'm
literally not
saying,
seeing
yeah.
them.
And
Yeah.
not just between the two of them like you're pointing out, but the fact that this relationship for Connell at least has to happen behind closed
Yep.
doors. And Marianne again is completely she acquiesces to it
Hmm.
even though it demeans her in many ways. But she again refuses to acknowledge, I think, the way that it demeans her.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm realizing now too, as we do our close reading, that, and I think this is on par with like the way we approach our podcast in general,
Hmm.
is not so much from the perspective of what is happening, but why it's happening.
Oh yeah.
Like, we're not going to talk about and then X and then Y.
Right.
And then, like,
Right.
if you're coming here to like hear the recap of the plot, you're at the wrong place. We're here to talk about like why the writer is choosing to do something a particular
Yeah.
way, which is what you're really good at, I think, and then what it means, which is what we're both good at, hopefully. Okay, cool. So, third chapter. Another month later.
Yep.
Still kind of early spring, late winter, March 2011.
They're applying for colleges.
They're applying for colleges. So Marianne and Connell are the smartest people in the
Right.
school.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they are also,
Yeah.
they have the least to be worried about. Like, for
Yeah.
them, they have the luxury of choice.
Yeah.
Like, that's what makes Connell's decision so difficult for him, is that it's not about,
That's such a good point that I didn't
yeah,
realize.
like, he's not like, it's not like kids nowadays who are like, well, am I going to get into this engineering program or should I fall back on business? Like, Connell can choose English or law because not only would he be good at both, but he would be welcome into either program, so to speak.
Now I feel like you have a field day with this.
Yeah.
I guess this is on me for assuming, like, yes. So in the novel, it's spoken about a lot how he's usually top of the class. For me, though, for some reason, because he's poor, I always read it as he's dumb. And I think that's like a meta social commentary on me reading this novel, because I've read this.
Well, and he's like, he plays sports.
Yeah, and I guess it like in my head this whole time until literally just now you saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess he does have like
He's smarter
choices
than Marianne.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I just always assumed that like he's dumb, and so he's struggling to choose what he wants to do because he's dumb, and not necessarily because he has a wealth of options.
But I wonder.
I also, to be fair, this is with the context of like I know what Trinity is, but I don't know its reputation. So
Trinity is a very good reputation. Why. Yeah, because the other one he was thinking about going to Galway, I think. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, into this point about school, well, one, to the point about him being like quote unquote dumb, I think maybe kind of subconsciously you think that because he acts so dumb in relationship to Marianne.
Yeah.
Like, socially speaking, he's completely awkward. Yeah. He's completely, this like self-misunderstanding, I think, is what maintains this idea of him being kind of ignorant in general. And I think here we're also introduced for the first time most explicitly again to what's happening in the economy right now.
Literally noted this, yeah, for sure.
Marianne says the economy's fucked anyway, when he's like, I'm not sure about the job prospects of getting an English degree, and she's like, well, the economy's fucked. And then I think for me, one of the parts where I actually laughed aloud, and he says, if he went to college in Galway, he could stay with the same social group and live the life he's always planned on, getting a good degree, having a nice girlfriend. On the other hand, he could go to Trinity. Life would be different. He would start going to dinner parties and having conversations about the Greek bailout. He could, this is the line that made me laugh, he could fuck some weird-looking girls who turn out to be bisexual. He could go to London or Barcelona, etc. It's the fork in the road, you know, the first major fork in the road that you experience as a young person, which is, where do I go to school? What do I do after I graduate high school, etc.
This chapter was I really like this chapter.
I did too.
Yeah, I think it really is where the novel,
it breaks open. Yeah,
and so a few things. One, I literally wrote, so after the Marianne tells him to do English because the economy is fucked, I literally wrote, good old Sally, and tossing in economic stuff. But I do love the youthfulness of this whole line.
It's very young.
And I knew this is where you would like really dig your teeth into this novel, is the eventually communism comes up, and I was like, this is where
the socialism. So yes, there's like some political commentary happening here, political contextualization, economic contextualization. There's also, for me, some of the most, again, beautiful writing where Connell talks about writing down how he feels about Marianne.
Yeah.
It's so significant and lovely. And I've actually, even before I read this, many years ago, like 4 years ago, I was putting together a gift for a then boyfriend of mine at the time. And the gift was a short novella of our relationship up until that point, wherein I would scaffold a few scenes that had happened over the course of our relationship, and I wrote them like in a very literary way. And as an epigraph to this short novella, I included this paragraph.
Cool.
I like found it on, I was like searching for like romantic, like literary phrases and sentiments, and this one was suggested to me, I think, like through a Reddit page. And so when I came to it, I was like, oh, there it is. Like, here it is. Here it is in the context of the book. And the my I won't read the whole thing, but my favorite part is multiple times he has tried writing his thoughts about Marianne down on paper in an effort to make sense of them. He's moved by a desire to describe in words exactly how she looks and speaks. And he describes a few of those things. She's not leading the same kind of life as other people. She acts so worldly at times, making him feel ignorant, but then she can be so naive. He wants to understand how her mind works. He writes these things down, long run-on sentences with too many dependent clauses, sometimes connected with breathless semicolons, as if he wants to recreate a precise copy of Marianne in print. And again, I think for me, the bigger theme here is this like desire for legibility, this desire to like decipher what and why and how, and then to come the ability to come back to it and understand it and then appreciate it all the more. Like that's what's happening for the both of them, and certainly for Connell in this moment.
Yeah. I just wrote a bit more about like the whole economy thing. Sally likes to talk a lot about money and jobs and things like that. And I just, the subtle way, maybe not so subtle to you, but for sure to me, how the subtle way that she displays their difference without saying, but I'm poor. How could you ever understand me? Like
Right.
someone else would say. She just, in like the first, I think, paragraph of this book, she writes how Connell looks out into the garden, and then she puts
Yeah.
garden in quotes, and it's like, well, it's less of a garden and more of a estate, and there's a blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then I think at the beginning of this chapter or the end of last chapter or whatever, Marianne's pulling up to his house, and then she's like, it's a house, they live here. And then just the way that they view the world literally, and also how the narrative describes just like their economics difference. I mean, pushing aside the fact that his mom works for her, like just their economic differences in that way too, and how they view their differences, I found so interesting.
I do too, and I think what's refreshing about it is that there's a suspension of judgment.
Yes.
Like Marianne doesn't look down on Connell by any
Right.
means. She doesn't look down on his mother for being the one that cleans their house. And vice versa.
Yeah.
I think Connell also doesn't judge Marianne for being the daughter of a wealthy family. Like I think at least when it's just the two of them, all of that is kind of canceled out. And even I think what was also surprising to me about this chapter is that when Marianne is telling Connell to apply for an English program, I expected him to maybe say, well, easy for you to say as the person who doesn't have to worry about money,
Yes.
who doesn't have to worry about making money off of a future job. Instead, he's just like, yeah, you're right. Like,
I thought the same
I
thing.
was like,
yeah.
that I don't think would have been the reaction if I had told any of my friends or if someone had told me. You know what I mean? Like, that lack of tension was so nice. And maybe that's because Marianne kind of like, I wonder if there is this like self-erasure of her own class. Like she kind of, because she aches to be and already is so separate from her family, that she kind of sees herself as distinct from the echelon of the wealthy, which I think is somewhat problematic. But
this novel, you're infecting me, because this novel and a lot of other non-American novels really make me curious about the context of the place. Because I think that could also be what we're missing. Because I had the exact same thought that you did.
Yeah.
Of like, to me, it is bucking the expectation of, if this is an American novel, you're like, why are you doing English? Like, what the, or why would you suggest that? Like, you want me to be poor?
Yeah.
That is our expectations as Americans. But I want, and to us, or to me, it is bucking the trend. But maybe for Sally or for, non-Americans or Irish people, it's it's not bucking a trend. And like, yes, there's a different context of like they come from different economic backgrounds, but maybe it's like that's just how they view education and
Yeah.
what they could do for their lives. It's
Yeah.
not about going to school for law to make the most money. It's like, well, do you want to do that? And that's not a crazy question to ask because
Yeah.
it's not America.
Yeah. Well, and it's also something that does ring true across geographic contexts are the generational similarities wherein people who
Yes.
are our age or younger find themselves with a future that feels impossible.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
what is the point of planning for retirement if the climate crisis makes my current place unlivable in the next 40 years? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, if there's already this premise that we're operating from, which is that, like, there's no pragmatic reason as to why I should pursue something like law or business, like, whatever, something that feels unexciting to me or uninspiring or sets me up for 9 to 5 that will stalwart my intellectual and spiritual growth, like, what is the point? And so I think that's shared across context. And I think too of not super unrelated, but like the experience of like first gen Americans
Hmm.
who come from immigrant families who they have to reconcile, like there might or might not be a reckoning or particular kind of conflict for people who want to pursue something in the humanities or the arts or something that's seen as being inherently uh, difficult to make a living off of, for people who have seen themselves as having made sacrifices or having worked really hard for, all of that. So yeah, lots of differences here. And
And,
yeah.
going off of that, speaking to, again, the virality of this book, the disillusionment of the people in our generation of like, this takes place in 2011, but like now we're in 2026. And I feel like it's even more so true now with the rise of
Yes.
AI and everything like that.
Yes.
The people who got the
Yes.
fucking practical degrees, they're like, well, I did business for 4 years and I got a job for another 4 years and now they made an AI. So now I don't like it. Like for people like me, I have an English degree. So like when I went into college, it was useless. But now I feel like English
Mm.
is the most versatile degree because you can do it's not something so specific. It's
It's
just
the
like
critical
you could,
thinking.
yeah, you could do anything. And again,
Um,
I think this is just like a conversation Rooney was having in 2011, and that's why this remains prominent or relevant to this day.
yeah.
Is it again like the disillusionment for these youthful characters? Um, just goes into the bigger themes of we're following essentially kids into their adulthood, and
Yeah.
we'll see how it unfolds. I guess just to wrap up this very long section, I'll just go to the end of the chapter, and I just wrote the note that in this chapter, Marianne represents and brings out what Connell has been fighting within himself. He cannot continue living in accordance to others' expectations of himself if he wants to live authentically. There are lines of his two distinct halves that render him like so nakedly and beautifully.
Mm.
There are lines in this novel where like he kind of like you've been saying throughout this entire episode, he wants to belong to the milieu of his current pack and whatever, but he also wants to belong with Marianne of the higher thinking, not like laughing at like a naked girl's tits or whatever, but he wants to like think about, well, why was that funny? And why did we do that to her? And why are you doing that to her? And why are you saying that to her? But if he does those things, he'll show his authentic self, which will ostracize him from the pack that he's already so comfortable with,
Completely. Yeah.
which just sets us up for the rest of the novel.
Yeah. These first 3 chapters accomplish so much.
Yeah.
It's actually hard to believe that that was less than 30 pages of
I
material.
know.
So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this incredibly close reading of Normal People. I hope we gave you what you wanted. I know I got what I wanted out of this. I'm already enjoying
Yeah.
this so much.
Nice. Goodbye. Love you
Goodbye.
all.
Love you.